And then this is western white pine.
White fir, huh?
It might be red fir up here.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about them, like, that one of them rolls in your fingers and one doesn't, and one's flat. One doesn't, and one does.
Yeah.
Like this is, this is red fir for sure. This one, this is red fir right here.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh yeah, that's white fir. And the red fir has the needles that stick up.
Yeah.
So like this one versus those ones that are
Flat
ones,
spread.
yeah, flat. These ones don't roll. The white fir ones, this one's kind of don't want to roll. They want to fire, and they got that rib too.
Yeah.
And then what else do we have there? Yeah, because this is the.
What are we at? 6?
Yeah, 57, like somewhere in there, 6 maybe. It's always deceptive, but yeah, this is the tree. This is not the tree line. This is definitely the subalpine thing. White fir, red fir, white fir. It's crazy how white fir can be here and down at the bottom too.
Yeah.
It's
Wide range.
yeah. And then there might be like, as you go down the hill a little ways, you might pick up Doug fir again. But this is a pretty narrow band, so it's not that high. But once again, this is probably, 80, 90 inches annual precipitation here versus our 25,
Valley bottom.
bottom of the hill,
Yeah.
in 25 air miles or 30 air miles or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not far at all. From where we stopped, from where we stopped to eat lunch from Irv's apartment's about 35, 40 minutes, from his house. So it's pretty convenient.
Man, look at that stand coming off of Butte. You said that's Butte Mountain?
Butt Mountain.
Butt Mountain.
Because there's Butt Mountain, there's like Butt Reservoir, Butt Valley.
Oh, Butt Reservoir, yeah, I've been
That's
there.
there's a drain. One of the drainages off of this ends up in Butt Valley, and we're
Isn't that the North Fork, the Feather? Then
the west branch of the North Fork
Yeah.
or whatever that.
Yeah.
Butt Valley ends up. I don't know if it goes into. I think it goes into the Chips
Bar or
Creek
whatever.
side. It goes into the Yellow Creek side, or it comes out over there. It comes out in the North Fork, yeah.
Yeah, it comes into Gansner Bar or whatever, and there's the campgrounds up there.
Okay, and where Andrew's mapping is just on the other side of this hill in the flats and the meadows between here and Chester. So what he was talking about was, lake sediments just directly east of here, over that hill and a mile away from there.
Yeah, it's just that contiguous, just big green band of forest up there, dude. Just looks so prime,
Yeah. And then Lassen, obviously. And Lassen's just Lassen's like the rhyolitic plug dome off the edge of what had been there. Same model.
Yeah.
So the left-hand peak broke off is the remnant of the old volcano. And then Lassen is actually
Oh wow, I can see that now.
come up on the edge of
Was
the
a
old
good shot.
volcano. It's the leftover magma. They say that Mount Lassen and the Sutter Buttes are very similar because the Sutter Buttes are rhyolitic dome that came up.
They're rhyolitic? No shit.
There's some weird, crazy rocks out there, and if you look at the buttes when you drive by, there's these ramparts where you can see where it tilted the valley up, where it poked up, and that's supposed to be the leftover magma from the Canocti and the Clear Lake volcanism is the Sutter Buttes. So after all that shit happened, the leftover magma that was felsic because all the other shit had flown out, and it like popped up in the valley.
I thought Sutter Buttes were much, much older than the.
That's the story that I've heard. And they've
That
popped
might,
up,
maybe the Sonoma
they
volcanoes.
popped up in the valley in contemporary stuff because the ramparts that are around it are like the valley bottom that popped up.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but
There were two sequences down there in the Bay Area, and the one that's more like around, like even down in Fairfield and stuff. There's volcanics all around there. That's all the older 1.5 million year old stuff, and then around Canocti and stuff. That's 100,000 year.
it's that recent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that probably makes sense then, because but it's just you start thinking about like just that discussion we had today about the valley fill alluvium that was a response to sea level rise.
Oh come on.
And the Butte Basin, where all the vertisols are, there's, in some places there's a nice old sandy terrace underneath the stuff, and then on the terraces we talked about this morning, there's inset vertisols that formed from dust. So how long did that take? Not very long, So those smectites, those vertisols couldn't have been there that long because they're early on in the developmental process in some of those minerals. At least my understanding. I'm definitely stepping way out of my knowledge on that.
Yeah.
So we think about soils being old, but those ones are young. The ones we just saw are old, relatively, because they've been sitting. They didn't get glaciated or they didn't get scrubbed off.
Yeah.
So they've had time to weather, but
old or stable, right?
Or both, yeah. But yeah, so Lassen, like I said, is if you look at it, you see Brokaw and you see the Eagle Peak and the ridge that leads up to Lassen.
Yeah.
And then you can see the trees below it and how it kind of wraps around. And that's the old volcano. Mm-hmm. And when you drive through Diamond Peak and the Sulphur Works, that's inside the crater.
Yeah.
And then Lassen just stuck up off the edge, along with the chaos crags and jumbles that head north from the peak.
Yeah.
And that's all stuff, and what you said, not that long in definitely in human time, contemporary.
Yep.
Probably indigenous peoples on the continent going, whoa, what's going on?
Yep.
Right. And then from there, I don't know shit. Like after you go east, and you start getting into like
the obsidian out
there's
there.
More, yeah, and like there's more shield volcanoes and all that stuff, and then you start getting out into that zone between 395 and like western Nevada,
Great Basin.
Yeah, and like the kind of other side of Mount Shasta and Medicine Lake,
Upper
and all
Klamath
that.
and stuff up there. Yeah.
The stuff that Andrew would talk about, like even how the idea that all this stuff buried old igneous rock as well. And so the idea that the Klamath Mountains, Trinities, the granitics over there are just the part of the extension of the older Sierra Nevada kind of network, and all that stuff starts to swirl in my head when I start to think about the talk that the geomorphology geologist guy gave at Poly for the Nationals. I can't remember his name now. He's really cool. Rides a motorcycle. Interesting guy. And
he's at Poly?
At Poly, yeah. And he told the whole story about how the subduction zone ended and how the Channel Islands formed and why there's the kind of weird little rift valley, like right where your house is. Well, not your house, but like the valley going out to Los Osos, and how that formed as a like transpression, transtension, like as you're going from subduction to the transform fault forming, and that's how Point Reyes is, stuff from the Angeles and all those granitics on the coast that are from the northward migration of the fault as subduction was ending, right? And now it's at, Triple Junction. Right. And that's how a lot of that weird little parallel valleys and stuff formed in around Slough. Yeah. And how Catalina and Santa Barbara and all those islands formed, because those were all just shit that was ripped off the end of the LA Basin and all that stuff. Super fascinating. But if that's I'm always like, okay, if that's happening, then that means that as these volcanoes were dying, that's when the Triple Junction was migrating. It had already passed probably, or it was in progress, right? Yeah. And now the shit's all extinct. Yeah, that erupted, but it was probably just like indigestion, It wasn't like big, because that's still south of the subduction. So if the subduction's not there to drive the material to melt to come back up, then you don't have that process. At least that's my I took geology in 1999 version of it. Yeah. I'm sure there's way more geophysical explanation now about magma densities and all that shit.
Let's go describe a pit.
Let's do it. You pick.
Okay.
Yeah, just drive down the road wherever you want to do it. Let's do it. All right. They say we'll take this one long out. Just do it.
Yeah, we should do a walkabout. Like you and me both going out to form on camera.
Yeah.